Hello and welcome to session 18 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. And it's good to see you here today, this afternoon. And we've got a new person on, Moyes. Hello, Moyes, welcome. And Damien and Ankush have just joined us, so it's good to see them back. Today, I'm going to talk about something that I quite often get told about me is as a criticism. And I don't think it is. And it's about perspective and how you view things. To me, things are either good or bad, black or white, right or wrong. There's very little gray area. I don't have a gray area. It's either black or it's white, and that's it. And I think that serves me well, because if people ask me a question, providing I don't go through a phase of trying to second guess myself, someone asks me a question, I'll give her an answer, and that's my answer. I won't try and hedge it. Oh, maybe this and maybe that, and I'm not quite sure. I'll have had an opinion, it'll be formed, and bang, there's your answer. I used to work as a geologist in the construction industry, and I would often be talking about things, and someone would say, well, how did you come up with that viewpoint? That didn't seem straightforward to me. I said, well, that was my viewpoint, and that's what I think it is. They said, don't you think you were being a bit harsh? I said, well, no, I don't think I'm being harsh. I think that's my viewpoint. It's either that or it's something else, and it's not the something else. And so that sort of positioning of that I have of it's either left or right, black or white, good or bad, is how I view things. It's how I view the world. And I do struggle sometimes with people who have aren't as committed to an opinion, or more open to being not quite sure and a bit uncertain about their opinions. And I find it quite a struggle sometimes, talking to people or working with people who have great flexibility in their opinions, and because that doesn't quite ring true to me from my point of view. It might be from theirs. I'm not knocking what they say or their opinion of what they're saying, but I just have, it is either this or it is something else. And I'm going to tell you an example in a slightly different context. One time my director came up to me and said, Andrew, some of the other staff have mentioned, other senior staff have said, you don't compromise very well. And we were in the meeting room, so we were in the conference room, so we could speak candidly. And I said, well, that depends what you mean by a compromise. Because to me, a compromise is having 2 or 3 or 4 different ways of doing something. They might be different in quality. They might take a different amount of time. They might cost a certain different amount of fees, and so on. But generally, they would get the job done. Now, you know how I would want to do the job. I would want to do a job of highest quality in a reasonable program and get paid well for it. You know, that we are in the business of earning money to support ourselves and make profit. And I don't see anything wrong with doing a good job and getting well rewarded for it. And I said, but if you're asking me to choose from something that is a compromise, you know which one I'll choose. But if you're asking me to choose something that won't get the job done, won't be of the right standard, can't be done in the time frame, or just hasn't got the fees to be able to do a decent job, then I won't choose that solution. And to me, that's not compromising, that's a bad decision. And I won't let us make the bad decision. And he looked at me and he thought, I can see I'm not going to get anywhere with this argument. I said, well, it's not an argument. You know, you asked me, you say to me that other people think I have trouble compromising, but I don't think I do. I think I'm very straight down the line as to what I think we should do. Yes, of course, I can do something else and do something less favored if I still think it meets the objectives that the client has set out for us, and it pays well enough for us, and we can do it in a reasonable time. You know, that's not unrealistic, and I frequently do choose a solution that isn't necessarily my favored solution, but will still get the job done and meet everyone's objectives. But I won't let us make the bad decision just because someone else from another department thinks we should do it cheaper or quicker or to a lower standard. That's not what we're in business for, and it's not what our insurers would want us to be in business for, because that's just a recipe for getting professional indemnity claims against us if we haven't done the job to a sufficiently high standard. And the other board directors are going to jump on us quite heavily if we keep doing jobs at such a low fee that we're not making money to pay our staff, to pay the building costs, to pay all the associated building costs and business costs, and make a profit. So, you know, we have to find that middle ground that meets clients' objectives, meets the business objectives, and that we can still happily and be comfortable about doing that particular piece of work for that fee and in that time frame. And I could tell he wasn't happy with my answer, but he didn't really have a comeback, because yeah, he was the director, so he would be the one that the board would be saying, you're not earning enough fees on your projects. He would be the one that says, he would be the one who would have to take that rap, which would then come back to me and say, Andrew, we're not pricing these jobs right. We need to put more fee into the jobs, you know. And so we would have that discussion about what is the right fee, what is the right program, and what standard we're going to give the client. And that's how I view it, and that's how I view the way that I view the world. And I just don't have a gray area. It's something is either right or it's wrong. And if you're walking down the street and you see something going on, you have to make a decision as to whether is it significant enough that someone's going to get hurt that you need to get involved to try and resolve a situation, or is it something that you think is going to blow over and you can walk on by without someone getting hurt? And if you have to get involved, I was actually thinking of a scenario of someone in a restaurant being unruly and always complaining. How would you deal with that? And because I was reading a couple of posts on Facebook about unruly customers and always complaining, and I thought, well, I would say to them, I would politely say to them, you know, I think you should just pay up and leave. You're disrupting the restaurant, you're disrupting the other customers, the other patrons. You're obviously not going to want to talk about the issue, and you're obviously not going to want to accept an answer that I give you. So let's just settle up, pay up for what you've had, and leave. And that's what I would do, and hopefully that would resolve a situation. But you read some of these posts on Facebook about people who go absolutely nuts in restaurants over the slightest things, and are abusive to their servers and abusive to the staff. And I just think there's no need for it. There is always the opportunity to say, excuse me, my meal's cold, or my steak's not cooked right. That's, you know, if you do that in the right way, that's perfectly fine to question that, and we should have a right to be able to question those things. But going to the nth degree of being abusive and calling people names and throwing water over staff. I mean, I was reading one this morning that was quite horrific, and the managers just came up and said, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to leave. And they said, oh, but I'm going to leave a bad review on TripAdvisor. So you do that, and I'll counter that, and I'll counter that comment. And so I was wondering whether anyone on the call today has had a situation where they've stuck to their guns because they think something is right as opposed to something is wrong, and whether you've had the same sorts of situations where people have said to you, you don't really have a gray area. I was wondering if anyone had any thoughts on that. Damien, have you come across something similar?
In my work, I known to be maybe to go on a little bit about something that I believe is correct way to go on a job. Quite often, if people are wanting to compromise or bring up a lot of grey areas, quite often I find that these, what people call grey areas, can be full of a lot of irrelevance and be there to confuse the situation. So I or at least try to go through the simplest and quickest solution or two things, and I will stick to my guns if I feel something is correct, or if there's something that we need to do to avoid a problem.
Yeah.
and so I am probably known to go on a bit about things that I feel that are correct.
Yeah,
So
you have your own standards and you have your own opinion, and I defend my opinion, if I need to, and um, but I am willing to listen to other opinions. But if I think that their opinion isn't going to be the right way forward, I will tell people quite, you know, reasonably say that I don't think that, and give them a reason why. I don't just shut people off and say no, that's rubbish. If I'm telling to someone
yeah,
if I don't agree with you, I will give them a reason why, and then we can have a discussion about that if need be. I'm not a desk thumper. No, we're not doing that just because I say not. I will have a discussion with someone about why I want to choose a certain way forward, and that tends to alleviate the problem if you can be rational about your decision making.
yeah. Quite often, if I compromise, it's because maybe I didn't understand, or maybe those variables I didn't see beforehand. So that I agree with you. It's good to talk to a lot of different people to really understand something before you make a decision. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
there are times to compromise and to change plans. Yes.
yeah, I agree. Moyes, have you do you have this sort of situation in your work?
Um, I would say not currently what I do, but in my previous work, 20 odd years, I was on the front line, whether I was a member of staff on the front line or in sort of management positions, and there are several stories where you have customers coming in not happy about something, um, and you are having to make very quick and judgment calls on things, on whether we should do or shouldn't do, etc. And one of the sort of key things that I did a lot was the sort of the first one is the processes and the procedures that we have. So the black and white parts, this is what you should do in this scenario, this is what should happen in this scenario, if something like this happens, this is what you should do, whether that's compensation, whether that's a refund, whether that's an apology, whatever that would be. And that gives you quite nicely the black and white part
Yeah,
of things. The other element of it, where the grey area, where I where I've spoken to staff about, where I have had staff go, well, hang on a second, this is what the policy says, but you haven't followed that, is the emotional element, where it throws in the grey area. That is, how do you feel about something? And a feeling is an opinion. It's my opinion compared to somebody else's opinion. And therefore, it's a lot more harder to try and convince somebody on an emotional opinion about something. Um, and so that learning for me come through to go, actually, when you're making those type of decisions, and um, you have clear processes and procedures in place, it actually makes life a lot easier to make a decision, because actually you're consistent at making a decision.
mm,
You
mm,
are you're fairer, not just to yourself but to your business, but as well as to the staff around you, because they know, if this thing was to happen when you come down, it's going to be the same thing. So therefore, you have their back, because and you have their support, um, rather than bringing in the sort of emotional elements, which is where I see the grey area being,
mm,
where that sort of, I feel angry about this. And a lot of people that you would speak to will speak to you, um, when they don't like something, in an emotional way.
mm,
I'm angry about this, I'm frustrated about this, it's not good enough, this is the effect it's had on me emotionally. Rather than, when you strip all of that away, I think, Damon, you said it, when you strip all of that away and you get to the nuts and bolts of it, actually it becomes quite, well, that's what it is. So yes, you can have that, or no, you can't have that. That then creates consistency.
Yeah, I agree about trying to take the emotion out of a situation. That if someone is emotionally attached to an opinion, it's very difficult to change that, and they can really dig their heels in, and it becomes an unnecessary battleground, and that's not a word you like to use when you're dealing with people and situations, because that's immediately getting the heckles up. And as you say, Moz, you put it very succinctly there. The emotional attachment to a situation is difficult to resolve without setting out, as you say, the procedures and the policies to try and take the emotion away from it and say, well, this is what's been set down and this is how we'd like to tackle it. How can we go about doing that and resolve this issue without the person or people getting involved defending their corner for their last breath type of thing. And I think that the way you said that is quite succinct. Yeah. Ankush, do you encounter this sort of issue?
Yeah, mostly I see this. So something when I believe in my workplace. So yeah, like for a certain thing, a task, I need a certain amount of time. So I believe in that. And if somebody asks me to do it quicker, and then something that I cannot do those things because I believe in it will take that amount of time. And yeah, cannot do it. So just a black and white. Yeah, I can do it in that amount of time, or I cannot do it. And other things also, I would say I see things as a black and white only. For me, if I see someone doing something, I would just say correct or wrong, and it will be so. Yeah, that I have seen. There is no gray area. Like there is no, a person is doing something, whatever the situation may be. It's always, if it is wrong for me, it will always be wrong. I will not see an emotional thing, like in emotion situation. If he's doing, like certain people will say, in certain situation doing that thing is good, but if I see it as a wrong, it would be wrong for me. Like there won't be any emotional thing to that. So yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very much like that. It's either right or it's wrong. And people have said to me that yeah, I don't have a grey area, but I think this is another example of what most of the issues that I have and people who on the spectrum have. It really all does boil down to communication in one form or another, whether that's written communication, verbal communication. Uh, it all comes down to communication, is how you go about talking to people with respect, respecting their opinions, and then having a discussion and understanding the language that they use. And one of the things that drops out of this sometimes is people, when you get into the discussion about an issue that you've taken a certain stance on and someone else has a different stance, is um oh, it's gone straight out of my head. It was there and it's gone. Where was I? No, there you are. There you go. My mind has just decided I didn't need to say that, and it has gone completely out of my head. What was I talking about?
You're talking about you're taking a stance.
Yes, taking a stance on something. It's people then get very defensive, and they don't always say what they mean and mean what they say, and that can be very frustrating for me because I'm very careful in the language I use. I do choose my words carefully, and I interpret the world around me in a certain way with my Asperger syndrome. And one of the struggles I have is people not actually saying what they mean or not meaning what they say. And when you get to that conflict situation where you have an opinion and someone else has a different opinion, nailing down what it is that they think when they're not being clear, specific, and precise makes it very difficult for me to try and see their point of view and be able to have a discussion with them about it. And the communication around sort of those issues of conflict and dealing with people and teams and projects, I found quite difficult because, as you said, Moise, people get emotionally attached to an opinion, and it's very difficult to move someone from that in a lot of situations, particularly if they're more senior to you, and that actually can create another problem in that they're deciding that they are right, even though you've got a counter argument, but they're more senior, so their opinion is the one that matters, and they're not prepared to have a discussion on an equal footing. They're more senior, so this is how it's going to be. Now, I accept that there has to be a seniority and someone has to make a decision, but that doesn't mean to say that the person below you doesn't have a valid opinion. And I think being able to express that valid opinion in a respectful way and have that discussion is really important.
I call it the "I don't like to be wrong" syndrome. And part of human behavior, and actually you see it playing out even in world politics right now, where people don't like to be wrong, and therefore I will show you all the evidence that I need to show you that I'm right. Now, you might have, let's just say you're going to buy a television. I'm making this up as I'm speaking. And somebody goes, "That's a great television." Somebody goes, "That's not a great television," etc. Now, one of you is going to be right, and one of you is going to be wrong, because you both can't have it right. So what you then do is find all the evidence behind you to show you that I'm right in my opinion, whether that you think it's good or you think it's bad, etc. And this is therefore, in terms of when then conflict happens and when emotional parts start to happen, is where you've broken through the first layer of, yeah, I think you're right and I think you're wrong, and you don't get the agreement. You start then going to, well, actually, I'm, as you said, Andrew, I'm digging in. I'm digging into this. No, I'm going to show you that I'm right. And even all of that then starts to bring the emotion out. As how dare you? How dare you try and prove me I'm wrong? I will show you that I'm right. And then you start putting your resources into that, and you get flustered, you get emotional, you get angry, and you get etc. to effectively put your case towards the other side. Go, here's what it is. Yeah, it's I don't like to be wrong. Nobody does like to be wrong.
No, I don't. But if I know that I'm wrong, I will put my hand up and say, "Do you know what? I'm wrong here.
Yeah.
How can we move this forward?" I can remember one particular occasion when I was a consulting engineer. I was doing something for a senior person, and I disagreed with him. And he said, "No, I just want you to do it that way." I said, "But it's not going to work if we do it that way." Reason, giving him reasons why, and in the end we both got frustrated, and in the end he just came out with the immortal phrase, "I don't care, just do it." Now, where's the reasonable boss? Where's the compromise? Where's the "I value your opinion"? None of that was there. It was, "I'm not interested in anything you say, just do it." And that means just do it my way, and that's it. And I find that I find that should be a very dated opinion, but unfortunately it isn't. And it's demoralizing. How would you then go about your next month's work if that's how long that task is going to take you, thinking, "Oh, am I doing this for? It's not what I want to do. It's not how I think we should be doing it." He's not communicated any reason, any technical reason, any management reason, any business reason why we should do it his way. He's just digging his heels in because he's more senior. And that I found very, very hard to deal with, because where does it leave me? What purpose was I there, to do anything? There was nothing. I would get no pleasure, no enjoyment, no satisfaction. about the task that I was doing, and the demoralizing nature of that was therefore to see. And I was not the only person that this person did this with. He did it with just about everyone. So there was an issue, and some of that issue was him. It may not have been all his. We bring our own things to the table when we have concerns about how we're doing something. But for more than 3 or 4 people to each always have the same sort of problem with the same supervisor, the same boss, same senior person, is it clearly says that there's something that needs to be done at a management level to help this person better understand the needs of their staff and to communicate how they want the projects to be managed and delegated and done. And that might mean that person needs to have some training, go on a management training course. It might mean that person might need to go on an anger management course. But there may be something that person needs. He might just feel that they need some support, because if they're always having these kind of similar discussions with all of their staff, then they might feel that they're not getting the support from their directors or the people above them, and they might feel as though they're being squeezed from both sides. And I can have some sympathy for them from that point of view, but equally, you can't treat people like that and expect them to perform adequately and well, because it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And these things need to be nipped in the bud early on, so that everyone gets the opportunity to work in a happy place. You need to be happy when you're at work. You're at work for a third of your life. You can't just want to turn up and go through the grind and get beaten up by your boss and then go home and kick the cat and shout at your wife. And something will break somewhere along the line. And your own mental health and that of your family and it's important. So communication is vital in these areas to be able to get the best out of everyone. Damien, you looked like you had something.
Yeah, I disagree with that, because I found I remember a long time ago, we were having a client visit, and the director told me to construct a sort of like support, like a cover system for the crop. And I was questioning him about how to do it, because it wasn't clear. And he said, just do it. And because of that, and the fact that it wasn't clear, the instructions, what they wanted to do wasn't possible, but it wouldn't listen. The thing didn't work at all. So when we had the visitors around, it looked a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I always find that when I'm asking people to do things, that I will, the worst thing I can do is tell them just do something, because the next week when it goes wrong, they'll come back and say it was your fault.
Yes.
That you so I try and get people to understand why I want something done a particular way, and I'm quite happy to listen if they feel there's a better way. So
yeah, the thing that I find about that is things need to be clear, specific, and precise. And if you nail those 3 things down, then you've got a better chance of being able to communicate what you want to the people around you who are working for you, or the people above you who you're communicating progress and discussing challenges on the project with. And that's how things work. That's how I like to be managed. I don't mind people being quite authoritative in their viewpoint if they're clear, specific, and precise. I don't mind them being quite firm in their view, providing I still have the opportunity to talk about, well, I think we should do it this way, and talk, look at it in that light, and have the discussion. So I don't mind them being quite firm in setting out what they want, providing it's those 3 things. It's clear, specific, and precise. And then I'm happy. I can have a chat with them, talk about it, and go off and do the thing that they've asked me to do. And if I've then got other team members that I need to brief, I know where it's come from, what its objectives are, and I can go about scheduling other tasks for other people in the team.
Yeah.
Have you heard of smart action planning?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not too far away from, you know, if you do it right, then you know, there's this, the S being specific,
Yes.
and the way that I coach that is be really, you need to have the detail of what you're expecting to happen. Whether that is you need to make the phone call, you need to do the you know, Google search that to do the research, whether that is go and buy this item, you know, then having the measures behind that to go, how do you know you've completed that? What will I see to say that you've completed that
Yep.
item? And then the achievable, realistic, and then time bound activity, you know, to give that um, um, specific actions. And that's the piece I coach with managers, to go, when you are telling staff what you need them to do, just saying go off and do that, what is that? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And what do you expect the output to be? Because there's a do you mind telling, I'll tell you a story,
Please do.
do you mind me? Yeah, so there was a story about this uh, member of staff that was working for a director of a company, and the director of the company said to this member of staff, look, I've got a meeting in sort of in a week's time, on the Tuesday next week. I need you to put a report together, please, for me to go into this meeting with the report, and here's the sort of subject lines that I need you to do. So the person goes, okay, right, thanks, asked a few questions, and went, right, I'll go off and do that. So this was on the Tuesday the week before. On the Wednesday, the member of staff had put a few things on the desk to go, look, can you check this over to make sure I'm on the right path? Didn't get anything back. And on the Thursday did the same thing to go, look, I've done some more stuff. Can you have a look at it? And on the Thursday, the manager went, yeah, it looks all right. Just carry on. Friday came along, and on the Monday, the report was ready, effectively, to go, look, you know, so you're ready for the Tuesday. It's done and dusted. Here you go. Gives you the day to have a look at it, review it. We can make amendments and changes to it. Yes. You know, I'll get that looked at. Tuesday comes along. You go into the meeting, and you know, this manager hands out and does the presentation, whatever it was, etc. But comes out at the end of that and has a real go at this person who's put this together, going, you haven't understood anything I wanted to do. I was made to look like a fool. The information was inaccurate, or not what I wanted, etc., etc., etc. Now you can look at that from two viewpoints, to go, well, the manager, in terms of their outlook to what was expected, versus also the member of staff who has produced this thing, put it together. Now, if you don't give the person the time, the direction, the clarity of what's needed to happen, then the output, don't be surprised with the output if it's not what you expect. And ultimately, you've then got this member of staff who is, you know, disappointed, you know, not in a good place, negatively impacted, etc., etc. Productivity will go down, the whole demeanor of the person, etc. So it is really important that managers, in particular, leaders, supervisors, that have a responsibility to make sure that what they're asking people to do is really clear, and have that clarity
Yeah.
of output that's needed.
Yeah.
Then don't be surprised if you don't get what you expect, because can't read your mind.
Yes, it brings me to a phrase that someone once said in the construction industry was, "Rubbish in, rubbish out." and there's you know, and there's a term that gets used in NLP from time to time, and that is the outcome of communication is what you receive. So if you don't set out what you want, you'll get something. It might not address anything that you've asked that you want to be addressed, because you haven't clearly told the person that's doing it what you exactly want them to do. And it's just two examples with the story you've just told us, Moyes, of how it is so important to have communication right. And that's where my gray area doesn't exist. I either get good communication and I can do a good job, or I get bad communication and I can't. And if they're not prepared to discuss it, I haven't got anywhere to go. The person doing the work has nowhere to go. If they either have to go above that person, and then you're seen as a troublemaker, if you go to the boss above that person, and all sorts of inter-office politics, which I detested. I was never an inter-office politics person. I was this is the work that I'm going to do. I'm going to do this really well, give it back to you afterwards, and we'll talk about it, refine it if there needs to be any refining, deliver it to the client. That was me. That was how I went about doing what I did. I was not if I do this in this certain way and I have these meetings with these people, I can influence what's going to happen there, and that might mean I can get a promotion. I was never that person. And it just, to my detriment, I have to say, sometimes I should have perhaps been a little stronger in how I presented myself to others. But I just wanted to do a good job and get on with it. And on that happy note, I'm sad to say that we have come to the end of our time for today's session. So, Moyes, it was very nice to see you. Thank you for your contribution. Good to have you on board. And Damien, it's always good to have you back. And hopefully I'll see you again next week. I will be posting on Friday what next week's session will be on. I haven't decided yet, so I will have a think tomorrow and post that on Friday. And you're always welcome to come on board. So until next week, thank you both for coming, and thanks to Ankush for coming on board. He did do a chat to say he had to disappear. So hopefully I'll see you again. So thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah. Cheers, Andrew.
Bye.